Welcome to the good, the bad and the ugly, where the mighty are fallen, the good get ugly, and there's no such thing as bad publicity. This time we follow the highs and lows of 5 volatile celebrities who've experienced issues with anger management. Throughout her 20-year career as a premium clothes horse, Naomi Campbell has proved herself worthy of her lofty nickname, the Black Panther. Maintaining all the poise and elegance of a leopard on the catwalk, she has also built a reputation for displaying plenty of feline ferocity backstage. In a 2005 interview with model-turned-chat show host Tyra Banks, she was taken to task over claims she had made her younger colleague's life a misery through intimidation and by deliberately sabotaging Tyra's career. With the cameras on her, Naomi remained the epitome of calm, smiling sweetly through Tyra's tirade. Behind closed doors, however, it seems that she has at times been less able to retain such cat-like composure. Long-standing rumours about Naomi's quickness to temper gained credibility in the year 2000 when she admitted to assaulting her former assistant, Georgina Galanis, with a telephone in a Toronto hotel room. Galanis also claimed the supermodel had threatened to throw her out of a moving car. She was cleared after promising to attend anger management classes, and over the next few years, the media focused their attention and telephoto lenses on her struggle to get clear of drink and drugs. In 2004, Naomi won £3,500 following publication of photos of her leaving Narcotics Anonymous. While she was getting herself clean, she began ploughing more of her time and effort into charity projects, alongside the likes of former South African President Nelson Mandela, whom she calls her adopted grandfather. She found another father figure in music legend Quincy Jones. However, her attempts to make up for the stability and support she missed growing up without her own father looked to be falling well short when she was once again charged with assaulting an assistant. In fact, from early 2006, Naomi's ex-employees were queuing up to sue her for assault and battery. After news broke of her fight with a maid in 2004, another assistant claimed the model had beaten her around the head with a personal organizer and abused her on 3 continents. No sooner had they settled that matter than Naomi was charged for second-degree assault against her housekeeper, Anna Scolavino, who needed stitches in her head upon being belted with a jewel-encrusted mobile phone for not being able to find a pair of Naomi's favorite jeans. Naomi shrugged off the charges.
It's another extortion.
In an interview later that year, she expanded on her claim that she was the victim of repeated extortion attempts.
And I just feel like I am a target, and some people have told me for months and years you're a target, but it's kind of sunken in that I am a target. So I have to be very careful who I'm around, what I say, who's around me. I've tried not to be with someone on my own anymore because you don't know the agendas of what people have.
Back in court in November to hear the charges, Naomi's lawyer was going into PR damage control.
But she's also constantly contributing to the public at large, whether it be cancer research or whether or not it be AIDS research or whether or not it be for providing for underprivileged children like the Nelson Mandela Children's Fund. All over the world, she has done a magnificent job.
He was confident about his client's chances.
The issue is there's more than one accusation. It seems like one after another. How do we explain that?
If you had the patience to wait and see how these things are going to go away one by one after I start dealing with them in court.
It didn't quite all go away. 2 months later, she settled another abuse claim from a former maid and pleaded guilty to the phone assault.
She said that in her apartment she threw a phone, and that phone that she threw did hit an employee of hers, but that it was not intentional, it was an accident, and that she was very sorry about it.
Instead of copping a maximum 7-year sentence for second-degree assault, she ended up with 5 days community service at the New York City Sanitation Department. Her ability to transform the potentially humiliating punishment into an inspired publicity stunt and promotional opportunity drew gasps from the paparazzi as she turned up for her first shift in a black Cadillac Escalade dressed in designer combat boots and tan corduroy pants before getting down and dirty. The before and after work fashion parade continued all week, and on the final day, she stepped out of the department in a shimmering fishtail gown and was whisked away in a silver Rolls-Royce, leaving all the ugliness and muckraking behind her. Or so it seemed. Unfortunately, however, just 12 months later, she was pushed to the edge of reason once more, this time at London's Heathrow Airport. On this occasion, the apparent object of her ire was British Airways' inability to keep track of a piece of her luggage. As she made her feelings known, the situation quickly escalated and the police were called to forcibly remove her from the plane. Psychologists were queuing up to make sense of her so-called air rage.
Probably she sensed a sense of rejection, I think, is what's going on here. I mean, probably that someone refused to listen to her, to understand her, to make sense of the situation with her, and just said, this is going on for everybody, it's not just for you, something like that. She probably didn't feel heard or understood or validated in some respect, and so had this angry outburst to protect herself. Anger is a protective mechanism that actually can be quite useful at times if expressed productively, but obviously it becomes a problem when it's too intense, too frequent, or interferes in our relationships or leads to aggressive behaviour.
She was later charged with 3 counts of assaulting a constable, among other things, and ended up with a £3,500 fine and another 70 hours community service. Another sensitive celebrity who has been known to suffer the odd rush of blood to the head is Australian actor Russell Crowe. At a BAFTA Awards after-party in 2002, Rusty allegedly roughed up an ABC producer who got the blame for cutting short a poem he was reciting during his award acceptance speech. Although Russell later apologised, many believe that his tantrum cost him an Oscar for his performance in A Beautiful Mind later that year. BAFTA-gate was by no means the first time that Russell's temper had landed him in hot water. Back in 1999, he'd been caught on camera engaging in late-night fisticuffs in Australia's Coffs Harbour. The News of the World got hold of the CCTV footage and published grainy pictures of Russell apparently headbutting another man. And despite his contrition, it was certainly not his last headlining scuffle. In 2003, while filming Cinderella Man in New York, he threw a faulty phone at the head of an unwitting hotel receptionist. Apparently, the heat under Rusty's collar stemmed from his inability to get through to his wife Danielle from his room. Russell pleaded guilty to a misdemeanor charge and landed a $160 fine along with a conditional discharge. But he ended up paying the assaulted receptionist $100,000 in a civil lawsuit. Russell reportedly described the incident as possibly the most shameful situation that I've ever gotten myself in. And I've done some pretty dumb things in my life. All the unwanted attention provided an unwelcome distraction from the job of bringing to the big screen legendary comeback boxer James J. Braddock. Thankfully, the negative publicity was balanced out by some kind words by his Cinderella Man co-star Renee Zellweger.
I would say that he's a committed man, and I would say that he's uncompromising with his art. I think that he does what it takes to authenticate the characterizations that he's undertaking, and it's intense. But it's not just intense because of who he is as a person. It's a joyful intensity. It's a focus. It's a shared passion that, he has with Ron and everyone else on the set that I loved being around. I found it inspiring, and I think it takes things to another level.
No doubt it's that level of intensity and passion that has got him into strife over the years, and for that he makes no apologies, even if it means he sometimes makes bad choices creatively as well as personally.
You can have a lot of great people involved in some really bad It's got to be something, really personal and intense with me. When I read it, do I actually begin to play that character pretty much immediately when I start reading the script? Do I engage in it? I kind of call it the goosebump factor, which I've had the out of me for years for calling it that. But, other people can do it for whatever their reasons are. My reasons are really personal.
And on the trail to promote his 2007 film American Gangster, he proved he had learned to take the mickey out of himself.
No matter what I do, whatever rubbish I try to foist on the general public, I'll always do it from the perspective of being an Academy Award-winning actor. You know, and that's lovely and all that sort of stuff, you know. But let's just see how this one goes.
Over the last few years, Russell seems to have been setting a much better example to his two young sons, Charles and Tennyson, not to mention sparing his wife Danielle from any further excruciating embarrassments. These days, he leaves the immature macho behaviour to on-screen alter egos, like his character Max in Ridley Scott's film about a London bond trader who opts out of the fast lane for life at an inherited French chateau in A Good Year.
Well, I think there's a lot of intensity and brooding to Max, but I think, you know, there's also a lot of discovery for Max to go on. I mean, you know, to do those sort of pratfalls 16 foot into a foot of cow in the pool, that requires the same level of physicality as fighting with the tiger. So it doesn't really change much for me.
Although Russell Crowe may have learned to lighten up a little over the last few years, one of his famously hot-headed contemporaries still seems to be taking herself pretty seriously. And after years of reading about herself in the gossip pages, Courtney Love decided to set the record straight.
I'd been written about so many times and had so many articles written about me that this was something where I could present, you know, fractured parts of myself, but myself, and there's no editor saying, you know, putting me in a box and making me into something I'm not. This is me, you know, like it or not. This is how I think, how I write lyrics, things that have happened to me, you know, real things.
But those flipping through her 2005 memoir, Dirty Blonde, The Diaries of Courtney Love, for a linear account of her life thus far, may have been disappointed.
Oh, yeah, I mean, it's definitely a scrapbook. I mean, you know, that is by definition what it is in a lot of ways. But I think all the pieces come together to tell a story, too.
It also illuminated one of her life's major turning points.
Well, the rejection from the Mickey Mouse Club kind of formed me.
Apparently, the rejection came after the 12-year-old Courtney recited a poem by suicidal author Sylvia Plath, revealing an early glimpse of the darkness that would dominate her creative and personal life for the next 30 years. When she married Nirvana frontman Kurt Cobain in February 1992, Courtney was already pregnant with their daughter, Frances Bean. Over the next couple of years, the tabloids printed various accounts of Courtney and Kurt's drug binges. On one occasion, they were reportedly so out of it, they left baby Frances in a cab. The romance ended with Kurt's shooting suicide in 1994, just days before the release of Live Through This, which went on to earn Courtney's band Hole rave reviews and millions of sales. After reading out Kurt's suicide note, which told of his determination to burn out rather than fade away, Courtney let loose with a barrage of abuse at her late husband for being, quote, such an asshole. She then decided to embark on a much more drawn-out process of self-annihilation. Despite her obvious problems and addictions, she struck a creative purple patch with the release of Hole's celebrated third album, Celebrity Skin. She also received a Golden Globe nomination for her role in the Milos Forman film The People vs. Larry Flynt. But by the end of the decade, the band had started to disintegrate, and as her career slowly imploded, Courtney started to explode. In October 2003, she was arrested in LA for smashing windows to get into the home of her boyfriend, manager and producer, Jim Barber. The police charged her with being in possession of prescription painkillers, which she allegedly threw at a police officer during her arrest. Frances Bean was subsequently placed in the care of Kurt's mother, Wendy.
Are you nervous at all about when you initially, they took Frances away from you?
Oh, it was freaking me out. It was insane. And this child service lady comes in, and that's when I threw the Ambien at the detective.
Are you nervous at all today about what's going to happen in court today?
No, I'm going in to say I didn't do anything because I didn't, and the judge knows I didn't.
And what about
I'm bringing my prescription.
How is your daughter dealing with all of this?
She's a little stressed out, but she's fine. She's a trooper.
While she was waiting for her case to go to trial, she once again ended up in police custody after allegedly striking an audience member with her microphone stand at a gig in New York. Somewhere in between, she'd also returned to her ex-boyfriend's house, and rage took over again when she allegedly bashed up a female visitor, adding another assault to the growing list of charges. A string of messy court appearances followed, along with orders to enter rehabilitation programs to avoid prison.
I have to stop drinking. It's fun. This is funny. I mean, it's not funny at all. It's profound. It's deep. But I want to see if I can do it.
Unfortunately, she couldn't, and her failure to stay on the wagon led to some serious head shaking from the judge.
I do want you to know that I am very disappointed. I have read all of the reports. I know the statements you made. I understand that drug addiction is a disease. I can't force you to be successful in getting off drugs. Your lawyers can't force you to get off drugs. 3 courts have tried now to help you get off drugs, and I am disappointed because you're not clean and sober. Okay? And it certainly is not something to joke about.
The seriousness of the situation finally hit home, but it took yet another violation of probation and 6 months enforced rehabilitation lockdown before she was finally able to get clean. Her subsequent ballooning weight bore testament to her success in getting off the nasties, but by the middle of 2008, she'd proved she was still a woman of extremes by becoming so dangerously thin that a US website wrote an open letter to her, begging her to wake up and get healthy. The same advice could just as usefully been offered to the beleaguered boy George, whose tendency towards the extreme has landed him in increasingly hot water. Like Courtney, George's inability to control his emotions may have something to do with his well-publicised problems with drugs that began way back in the 80s during his reign as the frontman of new romantic pop group Culture Club. His battle with heroin addiction was documented in his 1995 autobiography, Take It Like a Man. He blames his descent into addiction on the deterioration of his stormy relationship with Culture Club drummer John Moss. Since then, he's never been afraid to speak out against homophobia.
You know, everybody thinks we live in this liberal world, but people are still making records about shooting homosexuals.
Neither has he been shy about biting the hand that feeds him. At a 2001 tribute to MTV, he let the popular broadcaster have it.
I think MTV has become the kind of very thing it set out not to be. It's become a corporate monster. It's like it has. I mean, it's like a big Coca-Cola commercial. And I think they need to start doing what they did in the early days and break more interesting things instead of playing the same stuff over and over. Because even when you like something, you hear it too much, you start to hate it. I think more variety.
Throughout his lackluster solo career, he has continued to battle his addictions, his struggles and adventures forming great fodder for his stage project Taboo. The success of the musical for which George wrote the lyrics seemed to represent a new era in his life, especially when the show was whisked off to Broadway with the backing of Rosie O'Donnell.
It's different because it's a bigger show, it's a bigger theatre, and we've added 3 new songs. It's definitely, I think it's evolved, really. I don't think it's changed, I think it's just got better.
Unfortunately, however, American audiences didn't agree, and the show closed after 100 performances, with Rosie reportedly losing her entire $10 million investment in the project. It wasn't long before his legendary bad habits caught up with him again. In October 2005, he called police to his luxury Manhattan home, claiming his apartment was being broken into. On arrival, the police searched the place, and instead of signs of a break-in, they found a few grams of cocaine next to his computer. George denied all knowledge of the drugs. In court the following year, he pleaded guilty to falsely reporting a burglary, but stuck to his story about the drugs. He managed to avoid a jail sentence, ending up with a fine along with 5 days community service at New York's sanitation department. Unlike Naomi Campbell, however, he wasn't able to keep it nice with the swarming paparazzi.
You think else unfair, Jordan? Not unfair, but it's the press goes having you chasing me around. Oh, go away.
For his next trick, however, George made sure it was him that would be going away for 15 months to a prison in Suffolk in England. After convincing himself that a male escort had hacked into his computer, he allegedly lured the 29-year-old Norwegian man to his London flat, chained him to a hook in the wall and beat him until the man managed to pull himself free and escape in his underpants. After the judge handed down the sentence for false imprisonment, it was George's brother Kevin O'Dowd's turn to lose his cool. When Mel Gibson was arrested in California on July 28, 2006 for speeding and on suspicion of drunk driving, a leaked report revealing a blood alcohol reading of 0.12 and snapped speed of 87 miles per hour was the least of his problems. The report also claimed that the lethal weapon star, who was driving with an open container of alcohol, had let fly at the arresting officer with a torrent of anti-Semitic abuse, blaming Jews for all the wars in the world and claiming that he owned Malibu. The leaked report also alleged Mel had topped off the outburst with a sexist remark aimed at a female officer at the police station. The actor pleaded no contest to a single misdemeanor in a deal that called for alcohol rehabilitation, fines and probation, leaving him to cope with the sobering reflection of the effect of his angry tirade upon the burgeoning Jewish community in Hollywood.
I mean, the guy is very powerful, so I don't think he's very afraid of losing anything in his career. But I think, you know, and Hollywood is very well managed by Jew, as you know. And so I don't think he's going to have a very simple life from now on, because I think he actually thinks what he said, even if he said, no, I'm sorry, I didn't mean it. But, you know, in vino veritas, we said in Italy, which means when you're drunk, you tell the truth.
With the movie Passion, that was a great movie, but it shouldn't have been done. His father, being very prejudiced, supported the Germans. So it didn't surprise me too much. It surprised me. He was so stupid to say it. He would ruin his life, and that's good.
Going into damage limitation overdrive, Mel sent out written apologies, blaming his problems with alcohol for acting out of control and saying things which he did not believe to be true and which were completely despicable. He did the round of talk shows, bowing and scraping to the likes of Diane Sawyer, talking about his depression and alcohol addiction in an attempt to win a reprieve. He won one from Anti-Defamation League National Director Abraham Foxman, who accepted his apology and expressed a willingness to help in his rehabilitation. And after earning largely positive reviews and Academy Award nominations for his 2006 epic Apocalypto, it seemed that all had been forgiven. However, while he appeared to have gained control of his drinking habits, his ferocious response to a heckler during a guest lecture in 2007 did raise some doubts as to the effectiveness of his rehabilitation in the anger management department.